All right, let's take a deeper look at why it took so little time for Afghanistan to get to this brink of utter despair, and we'll give you a better sense of what the Afghan people are going through tonight. Joining me now is Asma Faizi. She's president of the Afghan Women's Organization, and Murray Brewster, our senior defense writer here at CBC. Hi to both of you. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Hello.
Asma, I'll begin with you. You know, women have been a big part of the reason that the international community said they intervened to begin with. So what are you hearing now about how they're being directly impacted on the ground in Afghanistan?
Well, we've heard from many Afghan human rights defenders, women leaders, and parliamentarians that the situation is quite dire. Their lives are at immediate risk, and they're calling on the international community in Canada to help get them out. They have been in some of the provinces that we've been speaking to as the Taliban have taken over. They have gone into hiding, and they're essentially trapped inside Afghanistan because the borders have also been closed down. We've been hearing the Taliban have restricted movement of women. They are forcing young women and widows to marry Taliban fighters. They have closed many of these schools that had been open for young Afghan girls.
Murray, you've been speaking with several experts about the crisis there. Are they surprised by this resurgence by the Taliban? And can you take us through how this was able to happen?
A lot of people who have been studying Afghanistan for years are really not surprised to see what's happened. I think what they're surprised at is the speed with which Afghan security forces have collapsed. And some of the experts have suggested that there is foreign influence. There had to be someone from outside of Afghanistan to create a military strategy to be able to conquer Afghanistan the way that they have in the last few weeks. The other aspect, which is most interesting and specific to Afghanistan, is the system of tribal politics. And it's been suggested by some experts that there have been deals cut with some of the tribes that used to support the government to get them to be sitting on the sides, and that the Taliban have been allowed to have free passage through some of these areas.
Asma, we've heard this term, the new Taliban, referring to a more organized sort of group in the way that Murray's talking about. What do you make of that? And it also begs the question then, should the U.S. have stayed? I think it's a difficult question for Afghans who want their own autonomy but have, mixed feelings about foreign sort of interventions.
Yeah. It's not that they should have stayed, but they should have stayed long enough to make sure that there was the negotiation process happened in such a way that it ensured that there was going to be a peaceful transition. I think the problem is that the Afghan security forces, the government has essentially been left on its own. They're not able to defend the people of Afghanistan, and as Murray mentioned, there's a lot of regional interference inside Afghanistan. And so, a lot of people have been calling on the international community to put pressure on regional partners, including our neighboring countries, including Pakistan, to compel the Taliban to come to a ceasefire so that there could be, they could come back to the negotiation process, and we can have a true process with the full participation of women and minorities, so that whatever the solution that comes out can be sold to the people of Afghanistan, that it's acceptable to them because they were part of that process of creating it.
Murray, did the U.S. and Canada do enough, and what's our role now?
Well, Canada has been out of Afghanistan since 2014, and the country has been essentially supporting Afghan institutions like the army with money and with advice and logistical support in some cases. But it has been the United States which has been the principal driver of the peace process. And I fully agree with the fact that the United States should not have walked away from Afghanistan without some kind of peace deal. And it was evident to anybody who was watching the peace process that the Taliban were simply playing for time. When the conference opened last September, and the lack of progress over the fall just was an indicator that the Taliban were waiting for the withdrawal of foreign international military forces, because that is something that they have asked for almost from the beginning. That has been a Taliban demand for decades. They would not talk to the Afghan government until foreign forces were out of the country. Well, they got their wish, and this is what's happening.
Asma, just a few moments left. What's your message at the end of the day as all of this is unfolding?
So people, they're flooding Kabul. There are people living on the streets of Kabul. They are sleeping. They have no food, no water. What really needs to be done, that there should be bilateral, multilateral meetings and events that deal with the immediate focus on the human rights and humanitarian crisis that is happening there. For those women that are left behind, for those women that were encouraged to defend human rights and be elected to be in parliament, those women are at immediate risk, and we need to make sure that the Canadian government or the Canadian forces that are on the ground right now, before they leave, they at least take those women with them. We're not talking about 50 million women. We're talking about hundreds of women who are at immediate risk that have been calling out for the Canadian government to make sure that they're taken out of Afghanistan.
All right, Asma, Faizi, Brewster, thanks to both of you for your time tonight.